falling to sleep. Hey, what's up, everybody? I just wanted to talk some philosophy with y'all today. I've been writing a lot of poetry, and I figured I'd just speak to y'all for a little bit. I hope everybody's having a good day. I see the LGBTQ just got a big ally, Trump, newest member of the community. My guy. Okay, I advocate. I don't want no hate. I want everything to go copacetic. But anyways, outside of that shit, the big bill, huh? Boy, I see why he didn't like Hillary too. All right. I want to talk some philosophy. One, I watched a short about infinity, and in the short about infinity, they said every number until they got to, I think it's like soft infinity and or infinite infinity. I don't even know, but and as I was sitting there reading the comments, so many of the commenters said, you will, no matter what number you ever get to, you will be closer to zero still than infinity. And that is a fucking bar. And the reason that's a bar is because humans are finite to the point that even thinking about infinity should just be like something that's philosophical, or like they say, a concept in mathematics. Which is also why I don't like when people try to apply real world applications to like negative numbers, negative charges, and things like that outside of the concept in mathematics, or even traveling back in time. Because the idea of traveling back in time is from our perspective right now, is purely cosplay. Purely cosplay. I don't think people understand the chemical reactions that would have to be involved with going back in time. I know people think of circle wormholes and a bunch of plasma zapping the inside of a machine and they go poof. They'll go poof. Just that gets like, goddamn, I play too much. Okay. I play just enough. There we go. Keep it balanced. So what I want to talk about is consciousness and awareness. And I told my friend, consciousness and awareness are just words and they don't blah, blah, blah. We make these words. And I said, we fathom after these words, or we inspire after these words, but we are mechanical creatures. And the reason I say that is because even down to the quantum level, though we can't fully understand the quantum level because it's so small. Anyways, from my perception, everything is mechanical. There's even conservation of energy. So this is not destroying anything. It's all converting into something else, even the heat that's created. It's called thermodynamics. And so I told my friend that we're mechanical creatures. You know what I mean? We breathe. We say we have all these thoughts, but those even are things that were taught to us to have, critical thinking and all these different things. I was thinking to myself, humanity seems to do this thing when it's advancing at the moment to where they go down. Of course, the idea of just walking down a straight line, I want to clarify, is a good metaphor for something, but essentially you just become a bot. And I'm not disrespecting bots. What I'm saying is, when you do have the ability to freely think, what does one freely think about in the absence of awareness of time and fatality? When I say that, the problem is everybody jokes about not being able to live forever and mocks people for it, but they don't live like it in their younger years, so to speak. And so, oftentimes I call it the infinity complex, to where the ego hides the truth and we live in a certain dissonance to keep oneself pleasured, self-pleasuring oneself, lover of oneself. Now, I'm going to bring up a couple scriptures. It's been a while since I've read some of these books and different things like that. But the thing is, from my perspective, check this one out. The thing is, from my perspective, there's a scripture that says, men will become lovers of oneself. I'm not even going to argue with that. That's oneself. That's easy to see. But the other scriptures, there's one that say, man shall not lie with another man like he does with womankind. And I'm telling you, listen to the metaphor I'm about to give. My flesh essentially came from the mother and father, but my genetic code, for the most part, written by my father, mixed with the genetic code from my mother. The earth or the man, the flesh comes, so in a metaphor, I say the flesh comes from the woman, but the genetic code and the spirit come from the man. And so when I say that, essentially now think I'm comprised of two beings in one, my mother and father. Now, as a mixture of my mother and father, this isn't, I'm not teaching people anything about gender right now. That's not what this is. This is a metaphor about worshiping other people and clinging to other people and trying to make love to other men because you idolize them. And I will give examples. One moment. So now I think and I am and I can do and I experience. But now, for some reason, aspects of my flesh, maybe because of what my consciousness is gathering, or maybe because of what my flesh is lusting after. And I'll explain what I mean. This isn't talking about having sex still, but it is metaphorically through the spirit. So let's say let's say there's this pastor, and this pastor is super intelligent and wise and knows a bunch of stuff. And so then you have the people that'll be like, but my pastor says, or my pastor, or this about my church, my pastor, my church. You are now idolizing the church, the concept of the church, and the man and his spirit. Your flesh clings to that man now, and now you're worshiping his words and everything he does like a god, almost like the Pope, deacons, bishops, pastors, whatever y'all fucking names are. And then even words, people that use vain words and sayings. And I'm going to bring Paul up in a minute because even the idea, somebody brought up a good point. Paul and the idea of Paul essentially, is that Paul is talking to a whole other group of people. The Romans were doing a lot of different sexual things, and they were into pedophilia. A lot of people in history was. And that's why certain scriptures that say you should not lay with mankind, and a lot of times I heard it was translated to a young boy like you will with the woman. So from my perspective, it's talking about pedophilia. And from my perspective, it's talking about enslaving another man. They had people that was owned like property and just different stuff like that. And the idea of forcing another person to become your flesh meat. Now, you see how it says like laying with womankind right there, then and there. Now, that's taking away from the fleshly ideology of what it's talking about. And so you can perceive scriptures how you will. I'm not here to tell you what to do with the dead letter. I'm essentially telling you, you guys are laying with mankind every time you idolize other men and people. This can be even with women too. Women are not exempt from this. Oh, she has the answer. She has the knowledge. Julie Green, she knows everything. And that's why I tell y'all over and over, don't bow or worship to me. That's my flesh's job. And I'm not telling my flesh to go do vain things. You see how I operate. What I'm saying is that's a metaphor for love who I am with all my heart and soul. And then I can go love others the same. And so then I wouldn't even want my love for myself to be toxic, because then it will leak on to other humans and then it will be toxic towards them in some way, shape, or form. Like humans telling other humans, we don't have the resource, we don't have the money, it's too expensive to turn plastic into gasoline. It's too expensive to do fusion and use nuclear waste to fuel other waste to come up with tritium or other forms of whatever, but now we can. It's not efficient to have a bunch of lab E. coli turn plastic into vanilla that can be consumed or used for other reasons. I don't know why people do certain things. I forgot what I was even talking about going into the buffoonery. But essentially, I can learn from other people. There are teachers and there are people that I mutually show respect to, especially if I'm in a classroom. It's different, you know, they're the person teaching. I'm talking about people that go meet stars and go meet actors and actresses and other communities and leaders. And they be like, oh, them, that, their words so much. Yes, I follow you forever, massa. You're committing adultery with who I am. And then when who I am lets you run and go and act a nut. And then one day when you're begging for me, it's like, oh, do your thing. I've already divorced you long ago. and then the mind and body split, and then it becomes what? Hot air rising versus cold air, and all of this, whatever's happening, and then it flips over, and then the cyclone is within oneself. And the reason I brought that up is, the idea of this being a mechanical universe. I mean, it's cool to have ideologies. I've said this before. A lot of what comes with intelligence comes coping, and the idea of end game, so to speak, and the idea of what happens later in life when a person meets certain fates and when inevitability happens. We all have our coping mechanisms, but a lot of times what people are doing is taking people's biggest, deepest fears and doing what they're teaching not to do, becoming idols with it. Now, I'm not telling people to go lay with the same sex and all of that stuff, and I'm not saying people should be stoned or evil for laying with the same sex. What I'm saying is a lot of people are interpreting other people into hell in cages, and I am trying my hardest to explain. I saw another commenter talking about Canaan and Egypt and talking about, oh, that book says stay away from Egypt and I don't follow the ways of Canaan, or when I take you into Canaan. But it's actually quite the opposite. It became Egypt once the Hyksos and Arabic people came and invaded over and over. Africa fought back, but then you had the Greeks and the Romans and the other different people that came and continued who were sexually into everything and destroying everything. I've read African culture, lore, the gods, and all sorts of stuff that y'all call evil. And even in that book, it says Egypt was the garden. The Kemet was the garden. People came and invaded and destroyed that land. And then when different prophets would rise to try to stop the oppression, they were killed like Zechariah by the altar. But then for the price of a slave, they were used later as gods for people to idolize. And so essentially the very people they mocked became their gods. And it happened over and over. A man named Yehohanan ben Hakol, who I believe is who they call John the Baptist. And when I look at the idea of him baptizing the word, a man came with the same name as God. And in Latin, it was Jehohanan. And that's what y'all say, Yeho and Nini, Nini. Now look at my name. My name is a transliteration reader, whatever. Juan and Yanez, or John in English. My name is Wani. I literally have the same name as whatever. And so when I found all this information out and when I began to research, the man was crucified. They named him another man, John the Baptist, and then created a god out of the spirit he created. Because once he was crucified, based on Jewish lore, they call him Yochanan ben Zakkai. But based on rabbinic lore, the man told somebody about a prophecy. Then they had him killed. Nero and a bunch of people, I believe, because that's the violent man who was in Rome at the time. And he had a Herod and his wife was violent too. He had his own family killed. And so then, this is according to written history. I was not there. So then what happens later is that man commits suicide or something. And I believe this Yochanan man, who was a priest or something like that with a bunch of other priests, they were killed because the Roman army at the time was trying to come in and take the gold out of the vault. So then what happened was when they tried to stop them, they had them crucified and killed. Well, they had this man's son killed also, same name, buried him next to him at about, I think, 3 or 4 years old. And then what they did was they wrote scripture saying he gave his one and only son for the world. And that's why I say some of this cultic stuff is sick. But back to what I'm saying, them Canaanites was raiding back and forth, and then people of Molech and Babylon and Melchizedek and all that. First of all, disclaimer, do not smoke cigarettes if you don't, but I can't tell you what to do. So I'm just the warning. So, but I don't need to harm who I am to help others grow. Hold on. These AR videos are the best. But oh no, not again. My cat's thrown up. Gotta clean that up. So essentially, A lot of these people are interpreting this stuff in a violent, vile way because nothing is and yet all things are. And so the direction we go with our star should not collide and destroy the rest of the solar system, if that makes sense. Um, I'm forgetting what I was talking about because the cat is throwing up. Let's have to clean that up. So, consciousness. We are more like mechanical creatures that are learning more and more as we evolve. And now the brain, seeing the profit in knowledge, is realizing that that's the most strongest muscle in the animal kingdom. And so it goes towards that which increases its likeliness of survival. And so if you're not in evolution, hey, I'm not here to strike y'all. Oh, and so them Canaanites and people, and the people they're written about, and a lot of this information they got from African steels. And even a man named Amos, who a lot of them imitate, mimic, and steal, and everything else, was a pharaoh, but he supposedly kicked the Hyksos out, and then Akhenaten raided Canaan. That's the one who went to Canaan. And so once they did that, they reformed a lot of stuff, but then later Babylon and Persia came, and then Greece and Rome, which conquered Egypt as well, or the Kemet as well. Well, also what happened, these people without a king, the shepherd kings, came in and started creating heinousness. And that's why the Africans kicked them back out. But essentially what you're looking at is Babylon. Nimrod, there's a man named Menes Narmer. Now, if you take his name, and they have pharaohs had the rod and cane, that's what Cain and Canaan, the kings at the time of Egypt was branching out and building kingdoms. They wrote about this. Mene was a conqueror, but then Mentuhotep II came in and he did things a little differently. Well, after he unified the second kingdom, then the Hyksos invaded violently, and they reigned for about 400 years or so, just like that. The oldest Torah is from 1000 AD. All of these religions are coming currently from Catholicism, from them raiding Africa and Canaan. Julius Caesar and the Greeks took over Egypt, and the Romans took over a bunch of stuff and burned libraries and stole information and knowledge. That's why the Vatican has so much. I'm not going to get into all that because then people will call me a conspiracy theorist, and I'm just not in the mood. So, anyways, the point is, the oldest Quran and stuff, the Pope influenced Muhammad and with his uncle and all this other information that I learned. This is coming from people that were in the Vatican, and so then around 700 AD, you looking at, and then Protestantism was last then, because Protestantism, I wouldn't say last, but then William Tyndale was martyred. I call them two witnesses, Yehohanan or Yanez or whatever, however you say his name, with and then they created all these Bibles and Torahs. I call Josephus, Cephas, Peter, because he went and spread all this indoctrination and took the word Joseph into Egypt until the times. But Egypt means house of bondage in Greece, and it was transliterated in Greece. They're just saying the house of bondage because what they created the pharaohs to be after they had created nice kingdoms. And back to me, Narmer, Cain the farmer, his rod, Cain's farmer, and then they switched the consonants. And it's a bunch of words they did this with. Just like how they created the word Israel after English was created, they did that for a reason, to go into the consciousness and do a certain thing. But these people are slick and smart, just for the wrong reasons sometimes. And so then you got a bunch of like rabbis that create words. They call it the like Kabbalah or something. And that book, it's literally called the Babylonian and the Gomorrah, the Babylonian Gomorrah. It's like, but these are the people that Christians are donating to. They hate Babylon so much, but they worship the Babylonian Gomorrah. Like, that's why I say people are living like they're sleepwalking into some weird, pleasureful, destructive, I don't know. And so I'm trying to help as many people as I can become aware to what they're doing. Now, awareness, it is better to be aware and understand what one is doing and how it is for the greater good of even civilization and humanity around oneself. But like even simple as I was about to get super mad, but then I like calm down. Because not that I'm a better person, but that I was able to see what was about to happen. Nothing was going to probably change or probably get worse. And I was able to calm down before it happened and go to that place where I could just relax for a second. That type of awareness, or even with other things, maybe when driving or doing other things, random things. And so like the Black Cruella de Vil. I got a video on Facebook where I'm feeding a squirrel some crackers and cookies, and so then I labeled the video Snow Black. uh, DEI actors taking all our movies. But got a triple double. They turning rap songs into old 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, just different genres. The funniest. It's amazing though. Um, but just like awareness and helping with all the law and loving who I am with all my heart and soul and others the same. And the idea of all those 613 plus the Arks of the Covenant. No, there's the Ark of the Covenant. There's I am the spirit that hovers above the waters. I am the one hovering above the book. And then you got the whole don't put any God, you shall not have any gods before who I am. And then, I'm the one who frees whom I will. Have no idols. Don't worship them. Don't bow to them. Have none in the heavens of the flesh. And in these deep seas we call the book we hover over and over and over. And, before that book I am. And then I read it and learn about Abraham. And then the serpent tries to engulf and entangle the lamb. And that's why I keep a cat next to my right hand. Because if you Google or YouTube, do cats strike snakes, you'd be surprised how much bigger a panthera with much bigger eyes. Mm-hmm. I love playing with words and poetry. It's really comforting. And so I hope I'm able to help people understand more. And I hope people are able to read my description. I keep what I would call diagnosis and antivirus and different words for enlightenment and self-awareness. Different words for who I am, the automatic nervous system, the ones that are so afraid of AI, to begin to self-diagnose and heal in a way that's not destructive, in a way where I don't go on a tangent, break the brackets, and add some unnecessary digits to the equation, and come back with a corrupted file and the whole screen glitching, so to speak. That's just a metaphor for chill the fuck out. But I know there are times where one has to be excited, but I believe a lot of Christians know what I mean, and Muslims. It's time to chill the fuck out. I mean, the fact that Sharia and y'all even still worshiping these 600, where do you think Sharia comes from? The 613 plus the 3, the 616. Where do you think the 616 come from? Them pharaohs that came later, all them Ramses and Tutmos and all these other different names that started slavery and oppressing men. How is Africa so fucking amazing and beautiful? Then at one point in time, all these other nations invade and now it's a sand trap and a religious hellhole. The UAE is starting to fucking bother me. Israel is not keeping it real. I'm glad Kamala lost now because Trump opened up a can of worms. Trump walked into an ass whooping he wasn't ready for. Trump caused so much destruction and mayhem with MAGA and these foolish Republicans that they probably won't have power for a times and a times, unless the Democrats continue to want to fucking play around and act a nut. Because what y'all are doing with AOC and Jeffries and all this other shit and Hakeem and y'all, I don't have the fucking patience after what I just watched the right do. I would hate to have to tie up both of my hands, if that makes sense as a metaphor. People are already getting sick of politics, but after what Trump just did, they might pay attention for a while. All these scandals in the same day. Why do you think these scandals are coming out? Because they're going to tell on their own. I seen this one dude they talked to the feds and talked utter shit about Trump after gawking Trump. They will tell on motherfuckers instantly. And they're all going to go and do it. All this new information is going to get released. You see these files are out and all these scandals are going to come out because now they will need another CK scandal. Out of nowhere, they're going to need it. Trump is running out of thread. But Trump is the one who laced the shit in the first place. So Trump has one of two options. Trump can say, I am sorry, because I don't give a fuck about these weird flesh meats. They released the files and now all they keep saying is, oh, they're just going to redact. I have common sense, dude. Y'all got what y'all wanted. What do y'all want from these fucking crazy people? You know what they're about. So stop spamming the same shit and get shit done and fry their ass. When I say that, that's a metaphor for what do African men we have Comedy Central roast, right? Everything comes from a certain community. I just heard a motherfucking official say he deserves, and another official say he deserves reparations because they searched his phone records. Y'all deserve reparations for that, because I can show y'all some evidence of my people should be millionaires, especially the ones that were innocent. So it's been a long week, man. A very strange week. Dr. Strange. This cat is making biscuits inside of my hood. I cannot see the cat's head. If this is truly what scientists say it is, this cat can be doing nuclear fusion and being the god of another universe right now inside of a black hole on the other side of this hoodie, and I wouldn't know until I observe it. Wake up, dude. That shows we have vivid imaginations. Hell, what do I know? But what I'm saying is that's not profitable to feeding people that are on the corner starving. If there was no capitalism, they'd be doing hunting and gathering and be in groups, and we'd be living the way we're supposed to be, and it wouldn't be no fucking homelessness. Think about what I just said. This ain't just the Americans. The socialists have a lot of splaining to do. The dictators have a lot of getting the fuck out of my face to do, because, and everybody else. When I say humanity has half a times, I've told y'all it's been 6,000 years, and y'all all know what I'm talking about. I'm not a religious nut. Since about written language and all these fucking wars and violence and everything else, and the introduction of extreme human intelligence, my cat does not want me to say too much. It's been about 6,000 years. I'm not saying human. I know it's been about millions of years. Within the last 6,000 years, humans have, billions of them, put a prophecy in their head. And so I mapped it all out like a historical scientist. And what I found was quite a fucking amazing. In real time, Canaan is still cursed. The child of Ham or some shit like that. Because what the fuck is going on over there? But at the same time, Shem thinks it's finna keep continuing to be holy while murdering people, and Japheth is finna just keep it extending its borders. These people read a book, a lot of them, all the same book, I'm telling you it is, with a couple of variances. And now they got a whole bunch of shit up here programming that they're living out. I think the elites, honestly, in some weird, fucked up way, are programmed to and living that shit out too. I don't think there's like they can be corrupt, but I don't think people are as aware as people are giving. Like, there's like a bunch of awoke aware people, and they start firing movements, and they're not aware that these other people are not aware, I think. And I'm trying to spread awareness to the best of my ability, and happiness and joy. So it's been a while, so I'm going to go ahead and peace out. But maybe try it. I talked about releasing chemicals in another video. You don't have to do drugs to release chemicals. And I don't want people to like start creating chemical imbalances. But they call it depression, schizophrenia, all these different words. When misdirected and not done properly, of course, a human brain, like a Google search bar, is going to pop up. All this random information is going to pop up because you're being unaware by it instead of taking a hold of the force. Now, I'm sorry for anybody who has chemical imbalances and people who have physical problems. What I'm saying is this for vain people that, you know what I'm talking about. The vain people that are acting out and cosplaying way too fucking hard. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of oppression, maybe out of past punishments and pain. I don't know. But blasphemer, liar, blackie, Negro, come with me. Thank you, brother. That's all I want to do.